Hey everyone, welcome to the incredibly talented and lovely Stefan Kunz. Welcome, Stefan.
Thank you, Tom, for having me. It's such a pleasure.
Today, you're talking about a topic which is always super high. Whenever we ask people, with your lettering, what are you struggling with? What do you want to learn more of? Compositions always seem to top the polls. So today, you're going to actually be showing us and taking us through what you've learned over those 5 years. I still can't believe it's 5 years. A lot of people in the chat are like, you mean Stefan wasn't doing compositions since birth?
No. I started lettering by hand in 2014, early 2014. That's when I started doing it by hand. And then in 2015, at the end of 2015, that's when I quit my job. So that's kind of like a 2-year gap where I kind of had practice before I actually moved on into full-time artist. But even then, I didn't become a full-time artist until early 2017. Nice. So that's kind of when the transition happened. So yeah.
Love that. All right, let's do it. I think you got a shiny, there you go. Look at this setup, everyone.
So now you guys can see me still on the side. So all right, whenever we start with composition, well, the first thing that we need to start with is always a good quote that we can use. So for that, I have somewhere in my saved here, I have a lot of pins on Pinterest. I'm gonna go through here through what's a good quote? Coffee quote? Do you have a good quote, Tom? If I pick it out, it's gonna take a long time because I'm very picky with the quotes.
Okay, I'll pick it out if you want. Roughly how many words? Just 5 to 8, something like that.
We still got to get through that in the next 15 minutes. So, well, unless we can go over
45 words. Let's maybe go with stop dreaming, start doing. That's a nice one.
Dreaming. So dreaming, start doing. So that's an easy one. So I have created, I'm going to show you a simple trick, how to come up with, these are my fallback solutions whenever I'm in a rut or I'm not sure how to do something, is I'm going to line it up on a center axis. So I'm going to draw this out here. Then I'm going to place these centered, and I'm kind of creating these boxes around, which is helpful for me to know kind of how to place them. So here it's going to be stop. The important words, I'm going to kind of scale them up, double the size, and then start here. Going to go back, and then well, maybe we can invert that. Maybe stop is more important. Stop, and then we have dreaming in here. And now I just gotta erase some parts here. And then we have start, start big, larger, and then doing. Maybe we can create a 2-axis, start doing to something like that. I always try to imagine myself how things will look. And again, the more practice you have, the easier it will get. Sketching is only a form of visually representing what you have in your head. So the more you practice that, the drawing part, the easier it will get. So whenever I have something in my mind, I don't even sketch it out anymore because I just know exactly how it looks. But to visually show that, it's kind of hard. So right now, this looks absolutely terrible. But
Stefan, quick question. So yeah, I saw you kind of switched the hierarchical importance there of the words. Yep. Is it because you said the quote in your head? Because I did it. I kind of agreed with your original words. And then it was only when I said it to myself, it's no, the emphasis would be stop dreaming, start doing. Yeah. So do you ever sit and just say it out loud to yourself to understand?
I'll play that. I'll go back and forth so many times because one thing that we do is lettering artists, and you'll kind of make it less important than it actually is, but you are communicating a message. So the message needs to be clear and it needs to be focused, and you need to be able to read fast. So I tend to tell people I rather want to tell people go for something instead of being against something. So start doing is kind of more the important part that I want to focus on. So start doing and kind of the dreaming. like kind of keep that smaller and not as important as the other two, because even though like it says like stop dreaming, like I want to have the focus, the punch on the start doing. So that's where I want to really emphasize it. And so again, this is me kind of like figuring out, like sketching it out in some different ways. And one easy way, like this one is a little bit tricky, the quote, and you'll realize that when you go through a lot of different quotes, which quotes are tricky, like 4 words is actually trickier than just a lot of different words. And the reason why is like, I have 4 words that I have to place, and now I can like, I'd usually have this like important words layout, which is kind of like the less important words on a small scale, and then important words, less important words, and so on, and go through that again. That is kind of like breaking it down into like really the shapes and sizes. Now, what I can do here is kind of like do something similar, like dreaming on, like I'll put that a little bit less important, but I'll create this into a kind of upward slant part, then create the stop. On top here, I can either choose like shapes. And so that's kind of where the Tetris playing comes into, where you can play around with different styles. But again, you're creating spaces everywhere. And so that is kind of like the trick about composition, is to learn how to deal with those spaces, how to be able to create symmetry in all these elements. So for example, here with this, the end here, this flourishing, I can choose to decide like, can I create something similar, reversed, like some symmetry in that, and to put that on here, and then maybe use that space in between, like start. Maybe start is built up like that, so start becomes taller, and then that just also looks a little bit weird. So I can kind of like erase these parts, but maybe I can just make that a little bit round, and then add the doing down here. So you see, there's a lot of different ways I can go. Right now, from just the way it's spelled, the way like the hierarchy of the words is played out, I really enjoyed this one here, because like start doing and really the focus on that, and the stop dreaming is less important in that sense.
Are you intentionally, we talked about this in Ian's session earlier, are you intentionally giving almost personality to the words? Because dreaming's a bit more kind of floaty and dreamlike. Start is super bold, and then doing has this inflection, which kind of infers action.
So yes and no. One thing is like how to combine different lettering styles. So the one thing that I do is usually I will break down different styles between the words itself. So not necessarily having like either you have start doing in one style. So the style itself, let's go back here, start doing, I'll put that all into script style because like it flows better. Like it's a whole part of readability and legibility. So readability is, can you read the word? Legibility is how fast can you read it? And then of course you can add like dreaming, like putting that into a cursive font makes it look more dreamy, more visually like it reflects the word better than if I start doing dreaming into these hard crushed letters, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of like, you can play around with these elements, but then also you just want to create something that's visually appealing. Like if I go through some other pieces that I've created, like for example, this here, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. Like you can see the symmetry of the words. You can see a symmetry of the styles as well. Like it has the round on top, so it has a symmetry in all different ways. So one here and one here. And then the 3D effect combines, like there are not too many styles, like you will find up to 3 different styles. And usually you won't find, like these are not really considered strong serifs, so mostly sans serif styles. And so I'll rarely will combine serifs and sans serifs in one piece of lettering, because that kind of for me is playing around with different times. Like sans serifs are often used like more like it represents a style. Like if I use a sans serif like that, that's kind of like more older and traditional, something like that. While I use sans serifs, it's more new and modern and kind of like futuristic. So if you mix futuristic with modern, like it's kind of like doing cowboys versus aliens, like that would make sense. Like it's not a great movie, but it's a way to combine two old things. Like aliens are futuristic, cowboys are old. Like combine both, and cowboys have a style, so kind of like this thick, thin style. So you create these different styles where you create something that represent that style really well, and you kind of like add that to your lettering. Like always have like a backlog of really cool styles that you can use. So whenever it's like somebody saying like, hey, I have a birthday and my party theme is cowboys, and you're like, too easy.
Yeah, I got that in the locker kind of thing.
Exactly. So it's kind of like a ingredient that you keep up, which is also something fun to do. So right now, because of the time, I'm usually going for like, all right, let's go for something that right now, like I can keep on sketching out new possibilities. Like I can go further, like saying like, start doing something more rounded, kind of like going more of a shape. Like I'll create in my mind the shape that I have here, and then create like a break in between here, start dreaming, and then the stop somewhere here, and then doing. So that also would be something that could work. But again, depends on the inflection point that you want. Kind of cool. Like as you create this, that reminds me like, oh, you know what? Like the stop signs are kind of like that. So that is taking a little bit too far, in my opinion, whenever you design, like you're going like, oh yeah, that's totally that. And so I totally like, I need to go this direction. That is often a problem that stops people, because as soon as you're fixed on that idea, you stop thinking clearly. Like you're so locked into a specific outcome that you're not open to play around with the idea anymore. So the reason here is to be quick and dirty, in the sense that you're playing around with a lot of different ideas. And sometimes I just like to cut it short and just play around with just saying like, hey, you know what? I'm just going to take this as is, or play around with something. Yeah, kind of like that is the word that I want to play around with. So right now I'm still locked into this one, and I'm going to take this into the next copy and paste here, new layer, like kind of like scale this up to where I want it. And so that's where I would start to finalize, is I would start actually getting a different color, new layer. And in that new layer, I'll actually get the grid builder, and now start to play around with like the grids itself. So the word that I know is definitely going to be fixed is the start. But what I'm thinking of is now just play around with the guide. What I can actually think of is, why not change the inclination, kind of like Star Wars type. And if I'm actually correct in thinking, we should have a Star Wars type builder.
If the team could link up, this is Grid Builder. Hopefully most people are familiar. If you're not, it is such a game changer in the lettering world. Everyone who owns it loves it and swears by it. So if we could switch the button over below this live stream, that would be great. And everyone be sure to check out.
You know what Ian and I have always asked ourselves is, why don't we offer the builder bundle? Like, we know you offer a lot of bundles, but like the builder bundle is like the mix of both of those tools in one.
Mm-hmm. It's true. It's true.
About that.
Yeah, we should.
Anyways, talking about Star Wars, I was sure that Ian had a Star Wars shape inside of it, because that's Ian. Ian will always come up with some fun little things. Did you know that Ian is actually amazing at the GIF game?
No.
Like, he sends the most hilarious GIFs out there that you've ever seen. Like, whenever it's a fun situation, like I'll send him something and then he replies with a GIF, and I'm just like, how did you actually even think of like writing me back from that? So this is genius. But that's Ian.
Ian's a nice man. We've got so much time for him.
And I'm so lucky. Like, honestly, couldn't have chosen any better person to able to collaborate with. And
yeah, you guys seem to work so well together, actually, as a duo.
Oh yeah, it's well, for me it's a dream team, because he brings this professionality. Oh man, that's a tongue twister. He brings this perfection, this slow, steady work into everything, and like he gets things done and works on things, but diligently, like focus. Like he will pour in a lot more time into something than I ever would, and that's why like lettering grid builder became so good. Like I would have probably pushed out the product that was half finished way earlier. But he was like, no, we need to get that done. We need to get that sorted. We need to do this. And so one of the tools we actually wanted to release this year was a other builder tool. And I was just like, yeah, that's just great. That works. And it's like, no, it doesn't really work. And like, yeah, it does. And it's like, he's right. It doesn't really work yet. And we're still working on that and trying to figure it out and do it better. But thanks to him.
I can't wait to see it. Can you drop any sneak peeks? Are you allowed to reveal what it is?
It was called a secret project for a reason. No, but I'm not even sure what, like, we created such a hype around it. Like, if one thing that I'm good at and where I bring my expertise into the game is to really like marketing skills, like selling a product and so on. And he really brings out the part where it's like the product will be the best as it can be, and just making it like being a top product.
And he's kind of mad scientist as well. He's good at experimenting.
Absolutely. So here I'm just adding the styles. So right now I'm using the letter builder, and there's actually fun. Like, people don't know that the letter builder does exist as a font. So instead of me like trying to type it out like this, like you can just say add text and then just type that in and just saying like stop, choose the font, go in here. And so you can use that with any product, like Adobe or anything else. Now here's my font, the Stefan, called by the name found by Ian.
Oh yeah, I need to check this font out in more detail.
Oh, why is it
looks cool
changing? Oh, there it goes. So now change to the settings. Hey, my Procreate is there. There we go. Kind of works. Okay. So you know what? One thing that, well, no, I'm not gonna say it. It's gonna be a secret. Cool tools have to be.
The suspense is killing me now.
With patience. Yeah, no, it's one of the things I'm learning to get better at, creating a lot of great suspense. No, I'm terrible at it. What's happening with my Procreate? Let's relaunch it.
Cool.
Let's have some fun. Let's get some martinis. No, actually,
what's your go-to cocktail? Is it a martini?
Gin tonic. Like,
oh yeah, I got a whole cabinet of gin next door. Have you got a go-to at the minute?
Let me grab you. Well, I'm throwing some confetti here just to make something pop.
See, birthday confetti, everyone. Stefan came prepared.
Oh, I got the whole room full of confettis now. Like my whole background, you can not see it.
Except swimming in confetti.
But here, this is the amazing Blind Tiger handcrafted gin that I got from a friend of mine. So yeah, that
looks nice.
Looks amazing.
I'm gonna make it.
And it tastes amazing. Like, has some black tea in it, like some scented black tea. So yeah, that one is fantastic. Oh,
one of my best friends is Scottish. He keeps bringing down gin from Edinburgh. They got some good gin.
Ooh. So here I'm using one of my own created brushes, which is a paintbrush. This one is just fun because you can usually get away with drawing imperfect. Like, you don't have to focus too much on getting the lines straight and perfect, because it's kind of like create this watercolor effect. And so I'm just trying to fill that out. And so creating this wet marker style look. And usually I'll work with black and white before going into colors. So here I'm just kind of following those lines. And as you can see or tell, I know how the letter builder like works and where I have to draw the line. So like after a while, you just get used to how everything looks and how it works. So it makes it so much easier, which is a lot of fun.
Yeah, I love Letter Builder. If the team could switch that over in the button below this live stream. I don't know if you heard me say on Ian's live session, but since becoming so exposed to Letter Builder, it made me realize how intimidating a blank canvas can be, because you learn to work within these guides.
I know, but it's kind of like a ruler. Like we've always seen like some people say like, oh, it's cheating. And I'm like, well, so is using a ruler if you think about it. Like if you take just a straight ruler and draw a straight line, like of course that feels like cheating, but it's not. And so don't feel like using the letter builder as a form of cheating. Like, yes, you could trace letters from actual font. Like I could have drawn it out, and I still do that sometimes, but that doesn't mean like if I can learn something from it, like the more you do it, the more you practice, and here you're still drawing after lines. Like you learn how like an S is built, like where you start your S from every single time. And I'm still like trying to like, hey, you know what? The challenge is to actually be able to kind of like use those lines to your advantage and not be just restricted by them. So that's, I think, is the hardest challenge for people. Like they get so addicted to the letter builder that they're unable to draw without it. So it's kind of like, hey, you need to also try to draw without the letter builder. Like try to draw a letter in a different style. Like I do that sometimes. Like I sometimes just get so locked in that I forget like, oh, how do you actually draw a letter again? Or how do you draw a letter not in that style? And so if you see how my style is developed, it's just fun to see kind of like the settings. But you can see people who have been using it and improve their work, like their style has improved so much over the time. And like the cool thing about it is really how much fun it is and how fast it goes. Like look at how fast I get to draw the word start without actually having to spend too much time on like, does it really look right? Because I can just be really focused in here and not spend too much time zooming out, zooming in, seeing like, oh, did I actually draw it with the same thickness and weight and so on? Because I can just really, I can do that at the end. But right now, I got the spacing mostly right. I got the letters are consistent throughout. And that's one thing that is really hard in composition, is to get compositions, like get the style of the letters consistently throughout the piece. And so that is one challenge that is really good to play around with.
It's such a time saver. And Stefan, I know you'll be able to testify to this, but one of my favorite things when it comes to digital products is seeing what people create using them.
Oh yeah.
It's so fun.
Yeah, it's amazing to see all the things that people have created. Like we have sold, Ian and I have tried to count that in, and that's without design cuts, but we have sold, or we have over 30,000 customers, like 27,000 customers for the letter, like the builder bundle alone. So imagine how many people are using that, and how many, like we've got some fans who just like every piece they do, they use it. And like we've never, I remember seeing someone on, I think on Creative Market, who was sharing about like, hey, you know what? She created a font that was sold over 1 million. Like she made 1 million with that font. And I was like, this is amazing. How is that possible? And kind of like dreaming of getting to do that one. And now kind of like with Ian together, we've kind of like created this product that has this crazy effect that has reached so many people, has helped so many people. And like Ian said it himself in the stream before, like I use that product, like it's a product that we are using ourselves. And so not knowingly that it would really hit the market so well, but seeing like, you know what, we are using it. We're actually doing it just for us. And so,
well, that's the best way often. And I know with Ian, and so many of his earlier products even came from like saving himself time or figuring out something that was annoying in his workflow. And yeah, shout out to both of you guys. Like that's incredibly impressive sales. And I know on Design Cuts as well, it's been enormously popular with our community. People love it. It's like wherever you get Grid and Letter Builder in front of letterers, they love it. It's really, really cool to see. It's just a game-changing product.
Yeah, it's always hard to then follow up on successes like that, just to create, like, it's not about creating just products that are successful, but it's creating products that are helpful. And we're like constantly trying to figure out like, hey, what's something that people are struggling with that if we could make it easier, like we'd love to help. Like we've got the resources to work on projects like that, and we've got the desire and the skill sets often to solve these problems, because sometimes when you're doing something for a very long time, you don't even think about these things anymore. Like you're just used to it. Like, yeah, that's just the way it is. Or I've created a workaround, like the letter builder. It was a workaround that I've always been using myself. And like I see a lettering artist everywhere using the grid builder. Like they draw grids around their lettering pieces, and they spend time like drawing these lines out and over again. And then like they're not even parallel and sometimes. And you're like, why are you not just using this tool that costs you like $30? Is like, even if you make $25 an hour, like you have spent like just an hour doing that. But the more pieces you create, the more time you will waste by just drawing these lines over and over. And it hurts so much, which is the part that I don't know, it gets me sad, like frustrated and sad just to think about it. But like I've seen so many people that are just like, no, like they block themselves in some way.
I'm set in my ways kind of thing.
Yeah. It's like, no, like I don't need tools to work. And I'm like, yeah, like, of course you don't. Like, yes, you can do it yourself. Yes, it's totally fine if like you work, like if you do everything yourself. Like, again, like I could have created a lot of products myself, but working with Ian is just so much better. And so that's why collaboration, working with other people, like you don't have to reinvent the wheel every single time. Like use those tools. Like even for me, like I know that a lot of the things that you guys create on Design Cuts, like of course I could do it myself. Like I can do a lot of those presets, brushes, I can do it myself, but it's such a time saver. And like from a business standpoint, like one of my employees actually like asked like, hey, can I buy these presets and stuff like that? And I'm like, of course. Like how much time do you think you'll save? And he's like, yeah, I don't know, probably like a ton of time. I'm like, of course, then like you've already.
Well, all you have to do is work out your hourly rate.
Exactly.
That's what gets me. And you don't even have to charge a premium hourly rate. If you're on like $25 an hour and something costs $19, but it's going to save you an hour a day, it's like the ROI on that is enormous.
Exactly. And that's when you're starting getting good at calculating things, which like for me, coming from a banking background, like you calculate those things all the time, like return on investment. It's a big one that you always need to calculate. And so you're trying to come up with a lot of cool, like a lot of good ways to save money, to not spend money in a stupid way, but really to come up with good ways so that you actually like, you save money in the end and don't waste anything. All right.
Well, not many people know this, but when we first started Design Cuts, part of the meaning behind the name was it was cutting out the time and the extra cost and the hassle behind your design projects. That's where Design Cuts comes from.
See, that is a really good name. Like I didn't know that. Now I do.
Yeah, we should probably tell people that more. I think it's so cool how you can like put together an impromptu composition and have a full-blown conversation. I'm not that good at multitasking.
Well, I've been trying to do more live streams on YouTube. So if anyone hasn't checked out my YouTube stuff, I usually try to create, like, I've done a lot of live stream during the Corona time. And so, yeah, when you're streaming live, you want to explain something and draw at the same time. Like, you want to be entertaining. It's really hard. Like, you got to come up, and there are some times when I start to struggle, when I start to try to problem solve things. So like right now, like I'm going to that where my brain is trying to solve this this whole piece, and I'm like trying to figure out like where can I place all of these elements to make them look visually appealing, that are like probably at the center. Maybe I need to turn this around and like kind of like move it around. So I need to change it to freeform and turn off the magnetic on the settings here, so I can move it a tiny little bit higher up. And the question always remains, like, can you read it still really well? And so I'm having a hard time to do that. So I'm thinking more of this, but now the easiest way to play around with it more is actually put it on a different layer. So cutting it out, then using the menu here and paste. Yeah, just paste. Oh. That will put it on a different layer. So now I can cut it out without actually having to move it around too much, and maybe even make it smaller. So one part that is not tricky here is kind of like getting the dreaming. So I'll probably cut that out as well and see if I can move that. So instead of just doing copy and paste, I just gotta remove this part, but using again the cutout, putting that on a separate layer, paste, allows me now to maybe again put it in the same angle here as this. So because the G of the dreaming kind of like will bother me at some point, and I can place that, maybe even make it a tiny bit smaller, not too small, because otherwise the shape will just look like it's just a pyramid going into the center.
I've seen you work several times, Stefan, and this is all part of it, right? I think every time I've seen you do a composition, you shift things around, you play with kerning, because it's never perfect, like immediately.
No, never. And like the thing is, like, I've read this morning in a book. Like, I've been starting to read again a lot more, but I've been reading Creative Confidence. I have no idea who the author is, but it's supposed to be like one of those creative books that you need to read. And in it, like, it was talking about failure and how failure like needs to become more part of your process. And like, I love that quote too, like, make failure part of your process. Mm-hmm. Like, it sounds great, but again, like, failure never feels great. Like, you never want to fail. So you need to kind of like create this environment where like it goes maybe in the topic of like being uncomfortable or seeking discomfort. That's kind of like the YouTuber, the Yes Theory YouTubers who say that really well, like, hey, seek discomfort. I love that quote because seeking discomfort never feels easy. And so one of the things that I have tried to do more of is to seek discomfort by learning that in the small things, like the things that you rarely would really think of, like, oh, is that how you learn to seek discomfort? Like showering cold, like at the end of your shower, like showering cold, like you hate it every single time, but you know it's good for you and it feels great after you've done it. But before it, you know, just like your body will kind of like shrink and like it will burn for the very first second in a cold way. And so that, for me, every single time I do it, I'm like realizing like I'm just training my body to really react to this discomfort and just be okay with it often enough.
It becomes kind of addictive as well when you routinely push outside your comfort zone and good things keep happening.
Yeah. So in this case here, for the lettering part, like, unless I'm trying and unless I'm willing to sacrifice, like it's called like sacrificing your darlings. Like, if I'm okay to sacrifice what I've just created, like saying like, you know what, like, of course I can say like, this is not perfect. I'm always someone who's trying to say like, you know what, I like to finish a piece and then create something new, because with every iteration, you create more and better things. And I believe in the whole concept of quantity produces quality better than just trying perfection. Like perfection, like they've tested that with two groups, where one group had to create, like one group of students had to create like one perfect piece, while the other group only had to create was measured on the amount of pieces they created.
This was a photography class, right?
Yeah, there are two. Well, I've heard two examples. One is a photography class. The other one is actually a pot of clay, like sculpting class, where they've sculpted like pots of clay. And they said like it's so much easier to measure with clay, because one thing is what you realize is like clay, you can measure the quality of clay because it has like stability, structure, and all these elements in it. Like, and they could see that all these pieces created by the group that had to create a lot of pieces, they just create a lot better pots. Because they just had learned, they had gone through so many different iterations that they just realized like, oh, you know what, this doesn't work, this works, and this doesn't, and so on.
And I bet they have more fun.
Yeah, well, probably. The other one, like the photography class, the same example is like, they just tried to create one, and by creating just one, they never really got to create that one perfect or that one good. And at some point, you're just like, you can work so much longer on one piece, but the piece you create is not actually that great. And so, yeah.
Joseph, rotate level 100.
Yeah, I'm constantly like trying to play around. The reason why I play around with that is just to see like things that I rarely or normally wouldn't see. So for example, with this doing here, if I go to the transform tool and go to warp, like advanced mesh will help me. Like I did that on a rotated angle. That was kind of like the shape that I was using, but I want to kind of like get it more to the level of the dreaming. So kind of like splitting that up, playing around with that. And like zooming it out, zooming in helps you kind of like see it in different ways that you wouldn't necessarily see without it. So even here, I'm thinking like the dreaming is like still a bit off to one side, and maybe even this part here. I'm not sure if this is the best ending, so I'm just gonna select that again, go to the free transform, place it more at the center here. Like that's all visually like trying to find where it fits best. And now the cool thing is with the new feature of Procreate is also just like you can start coloring in with just some white. Let's see, going back in here, like giving some tones. And can I color in both? No. Oh yeah, merge down. Like I've been working on creating like these long format lettering sessions on YouTube where people can just watch me draw something. Like I've been getting to watercolor a lot more lately because it's also just so much more relaxing, colorful. It's easy to, it's fast. It's incredibly fast. Like you're so much faster.
Is this your YouTube lives that I've seen?
Yeah.
Yeah, really cool. Everyone should definitely subscribe. This is looking good though, I have to say.
So the thing that I want to get to is the one that's coming soon. It's a little trick that I've learned with the latest Procreate X update, which is really cool. It took me some time to really figure it out and understand how it works, because I was like, gradient maps, how does that work? Like I thought it would work differently, and I became a little obsessed with the colors and styles that it presents. But it's really cool and fun to use. So here, So, all right. So once you've kind of like finished, again, it's never finished, but you got to stop somewhere. Probably like 5 steps or something. And I'm still not finished here. I need to finish.
It's looking amazing.
So here, no, just like here. So gradient maps, gradient map on the layer, and now you're adding this here, like the blaze.
Nice.
And so now you can change kind of like, all right, let me turn the blacks to something more orange, getting here. So I can change that here. Here, these are maybe a tiny little bit. Can I turn that off? No, cannot. Done, Mocha. I can play around with like these different versions here. And again, here, I'm just gonna change the color to something a little bit different, saturated, dark. And so again, if you're not just using the 2 whites, but in my case, like this here is one example, but in another example here, that's kind of how I created this effect by just using like gradient maps and like putting like one on the background here. So if you watch at the, let's see, on the video time-lapse replay, you can see like I went all through it. Like I tried with the different colors, then turned it black and white, and then added like the gradient maps, and suddenly going back and forth, created like the whole flourishing, and then added the gradient maps again. And so there's a lot of cool things you can do here.
That's super impressive. I feel like you've packed so much in to about 50 minutes. That honestly could have been like a 2-3 hour session. But yeah, incredible. Thank you, man.
Thank you.
Thank you again for joining us. Thank you to everyone that joined us. And Stefan, thank you so much. We'd love to have you back in the future, of course.
Well, always, every year.
All right. Take care. We'll chat to you really soon. See you later, buddy.
All right, guys.
Bye.
Bye.